Hello, happy Thursday. This is Tracy Kaywood with PropertyMob.com, the makers of badass investors, and I certainly hope that that's what I'm doing, is making some badass investors out there. Right to the questions, because some people are getting impatient waiting on the answer. Margaret in Pennsylvania. Not Margaret, she's not the impatient one. What is the difference between wholesaling, flipping, and double closing? Or are they the same thing? They are, or may not be the same thing. Wholesaling, Margaret, is the art of getting a contract signed by the seller. You've agreed on a price to purchase the property from the seller, and then you assign your rights in that contract to a new buyer. There is no double closing. That is wholesaling the property, and the fee shows up typically on the HUD-1 settlement statement as an assignment fee. You can do an assignment of contract in order to secure your position, or you can do a new contract with the buyer spelling out the terms of what you sold the property for, and you get the difference for your assignment fee. A double closing is when you have to close on the front end, meaning the contract between you and the seller, and then immediately, or 30 days later, 60 days later, 90 days later, whenever you decide to resell it, you sell the property to your buyer. It can be, a double closing is typically done the same day, where you close on the front end and then immediately sell it to your buyer. That's called the back end closing. Those are usually done with REO properties, bank owns, where you are not allowed to assign the contract. So you have to close on the front and resell it at a double closing. There are two HUD ones. It does cost you money to do that. They charge you for two separate closings. Darren in Michigan says, "Hi Tracy, how do you write up a contract if your seller has more than one property? Also, how do you wholesale an REO if you don't have cash to buy it?" So this is a multi-part question, Darren. The first one, if they have more than one property, you write one contract up per house. Real simple. You don't ever want to put more than one property in each contract, because you may be able to close on one and not the other. And if they're all in one contract, then you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. You have to close on the contract, which includes more than one property. So write each property up individually. If you want to wholesale an REO, which we were just talking about in the last question for Margaret, and you don't have the cash to buy it, then there are people out there with money who will let you close temporarily, short-term financing or transactional funding is what it's called, so that you can close on the REO just long enough to get your buyer in there and sell it and get your money. Darren, Michigan. "Hi Tracy, Darren again. I'm having trouble with pulling good comps. How do you tell what a comp is in an area that's got a lot of foreclosures, and how do you know which is the best one to pick to your subject?" That's a good question, because comps are all over the place right now, especially with REOs. But they did pass a law recently, maybe within the last year, maybe two, I don't know, that REOs are now considered as comparable sales for appraisals. So you can't rule out REOs or short sales. You now use them as your comps. They are what's driving the market. They're 40–50% of the market right now. So how to tell what is a good comp? Most of the time you need to get in your car and drive over to your subject property. Take a list of the comps with you so you know where they are. On the map, drive by them and look at them. If you can go in, if they're vacant or listed, and you can get a lockbox code, you can go in and look, see how they compare to yours in condition, shape, size, features, and choose the comps that are most comparable to yours. You want to stay within 10% of square footage either way, 10% less, 10% more. Make sure the bedrooms and bathrooms match. If you have a 3-bedroom, you don't want to compare it to a 2-bedroom unless you make an adjustment somewhere in the value, because a 3-bedroom is definitely more valuable than a 2. So pick the ones that are most comparable to your house. That's really the best way to do it. I find that comps you have low comps and high comps. The low comps are your short sales and your REOs and properties that are distressed and bad condition. And then you have your high comps, which are your retail comps, properties that have been rehabbed and people are paying top dollar for. They don't need any work. So if you're finding ARV after repaired value, look at the high comps. If you're looking for a price that you can resell the property or wholesale it for, look at the REOs, the short sales, and the low comps. Melanie in Florida says, hi Tracy, in this market, which do you prefer to go after? REO deals or private sellers, and why? I do not mess with REO deals at all. Could be something missing in my business or a loophole. I don't know. I don't like to deal with REOs. Private sellers are my preference. Private sellers are better to me because you're the only one dealing with them. Maybe you have one or two other investors that are competitors that, you know, they're in there trying to get them a deal as well. But if you're dealing directly with a private seller, then you have the most influence on that person. If you're dealing with an REO, number one, you don't get to deal with a seller. You're talking to a realtor. God forbid you have to talk to a realtor to try to get them to understand anything or present a lowball offer, or, you know, I don't know. They're hard to deal with. REO deals are out there to the public for everybody to see. Everybody can make an offer on them. It's more competitive, harder market. Private sellers are, you know, kind of being ignored right now because of the REOs. All the gurus are telling you to chase after the REO deals and be an REO rock star, when they should be telling you to go in the opposite direction of the herd. You know, that's my belief. Don't follow the herd, turn around and go that way, and you'll find that you might be able to get more deals that way because you're not in the big pool, the big scheme of things. Bruce, the impatient Bruce in Washington. Bruce says, do you know of any 30-day funding places that are nationwide? Question mark. Transactional 30-day funding nationwide? Question mark. Ones that do not care about your credit or have BS upfront fees? Bruce in Washington, yes, I do know of 30-day transactional funding nationwide that doesn't care about your credit or have BS upfront fees. If you go to the resources section of the website, propertymob.com, it's right there for you. Coastal-funding.com, they do transactional funding for short sales, REOs, no credit check, no BS, upfront fees. Bruce in Washington sent me another question and said, why have I not received an answer to my last question? Geez, Bruce, I just answered you. You're already being that impatient? Really? Really, Bruce? All right. The most important thing today was that I got to Bruce's question, so I'm out of time for now for the Property Mob show this week. It's been real and it's been fun. And be sure to leave your comments underneath the video. Tell me what you think about the answers that I've given you today. Hopefully you can go out there in the real world and make use of them. Do something with your life. Do something with yourself. Make some money. Really? We'll see you next week on the Property Mob Makers of Badass Investors show. See ya!